All right, welcome back to the last edition of the Horseman Pro Football Talk podcast for the 2022 season. I'm Brad.
I'm Hefe.
It was everything I hoped it would be. It was one of the best games I've seen in a long time. It seemed almost anticlimactic at the very end because it was real exciting, and then it dropped off, and you knew the Chiefs were going to win. But man, as far as 58 minutes of football, goddamn, I enjoyed every minute of it. It was really a good game.
Yeah, truly. That's what anybody I was talking to while the game was going on, like that's all I could keep saying was like this game is like what football is supposed to be, what the Super Bowl is supposed to be. You had the two best teams in the NFL, and it lived up to the hype. It was truly one of the best Super Bowls in my lifetime.
Agreed. I couldn't agree anymore. I would like to point out that I think we discussed this. People can go back and watch the videos from last week. I think in the end, the OG got him. I think Sirianni got out coached. The adjustments the Chiefs made, because statistically, and I haven't looked at. I shouldn't say statistically. I have not looked at the statistics, but there are a couple things that stick out from the game. One is time of possession. I mean, the Eagles did everything they wanted to do, and they still, in the end, couldn't beat them. And that comes down to the adjustments that I think Andy Reid was able to make. I think Andy Reid was the difference in that game overall.
That's how I felt too. You know, I was talking to one of my friends. He's an Eagles fan, and we were talking last night. And I told him like pretty much the same thing you're talking about, except like Andy Reid versus Jonathan Gannon. And Jonathan Gannon's taken a lot of heat as the Eagles DC. You know, that defense just has a lot of talent. A lot of people saying the talent on that defense is what carries him as a defensive coordinator, which is fair because if you look at what happened, like in that second half, the Chiefs offense went touchdown, 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 and then the game-winning field goal as their possessions. And Andy Reid is the mastermind of that offense. And what I thought was it was kind of like Andy Reid – and this is going to be a bit vulgar, but it's just the way I know how to describe it. Andy Reid shoved his down Jonathan Gannon's throat when he decided to hit that waggle route on, and Kadarius Toney got wide open on the right side, and then the very next possession, he did the exact same thing, but on the left side with Sky Moore. And like just outclassed by Andy Reid there in the second half. And like you said, that was a huge difference. Obviously, you know, the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes, but Andy Reid, being one of the best coaches in NFL history, is what propelled the Chiefs to the Super Bowl victory.
Yeah. And people need to understand, I mean, Andy Reid has been doing this 40 years. He's been in the NFL for 30. He's been coaching for 40, and he's been a head coach for over like 23 years or something. So the guy knows what he's doing, and he's built the Chiefs into quietly. I mean, we know how good the Chiefs are, but like the Patriots, everybody just talks about the Patriots. They're still talking about the Patriots, and Andy Reid has built the Chiefs into a way better team than the Patriots probably ever were, to be quite honest. He's done it very quietly. And so even though I don't like Nick Sirianni and I don't dislike him, I think he's too arrogant. We talked about that, dude. Until you got a couple winning seasons and you got you a Super Bowl ring or two, let's tone it down a little bit. And I think he probably life lesson last night because he ate it. I mean, they ate it good, and like you said, they shoved it right down their throat. But there's nothing to be ashamed of with that. You just got beat by one of the best coaches in NFL history. That's something kind of to be proud of because you took him down to the wire. And there's a lot of game film to be watched on both sides of that. You can learn a lot from what he did. I was just, I'm a coach's fan. And I just, when the adjustments started and they started putting, I was like, I was just salivating. It was awesome to watch. What a chess game. And, we haven't talked about this. I mean, you and I have talked about it, but we haven't talked about this on the show. Even though I'm not a Sirianni fan, I have to give him props because he knew he was in danger of getting out coached, and he brought in Vic Fangio. That was a smart move. Good coaches know what their limitations are, and they surround themselves with smarter people than they are. And for him, I talked to a few people who are like, that's kind of bullshit. I was like, no, that was brilliant. That's exactly what he should have done, because he went. Nick Sirianni wins yesterday. They're not talking about Vic Fangio in 10 years. They're talking about Nick Sirianni in 10 years. And everybody would have forgotten that. I wouldn't have forgotten it. A couple people wouldn't have forgotten it, but nobody will care. Nobody, he would have won a Super Bowl. That was absolutely brilliant of him to do that. It still wasn't enough.
Still wasn't enough, which is crazy. Like, got to give Patrick Mahomes props because, the high ankle sprain, he had a couple weeks to heal from it before the Super Bowl, which definitely helps, right? But then he re-injures it during the game and, somebody just straight grabs it on a tackle. And after he came up hobbling, I thought the game was over for the Chiefs.
I did too. I swear to God, I did. I
thought it was over. When he took off, there was a couple runs that he had in the second half of that game, but especially the one on the last drive to get him from midfield into field goal position. It was like a 25-yard run, and got his ankle grabbed again on the tackle, still got up, was able to finish that game. Like, Patrick Mahomes is a dog, and he proved in the Bengals game and in the Super Bowl why he is the top dog at quarterback in the NFL.
I couldn't agree more. Look, and I don't know what game they were watching last night. They were like, oh, well, what injury? Doesn't he? And I was like, are you kidding me? The guy looked like he was carrying 50 pounds on his back when he was hobbling while he was running. But he was given everything he had. He wasn't even, and a couple of those runs, he like stopped and stutter step, and it looked like me doing it. I mean, there was no, Patrick Mahomes is graceful. There was no grace to it. He was earning every fucking yard he was getting, without a doubt. He should have slid a couple times, and he still tried to figure out a couple more yards. And one time, he was still 5, 6, 7 yards out. He was absolutely trying to get his ass in the end zone. I'm positive. He was probably thinking John Elway all the way. He was going to try to bully his way in. He didn't get there. And so, to your point, I don't know that people understand just how much pain that dude was in last night. I mean, a high ankle sprain is. I had a high ankle sprain in high school, and I was 17, 18 years old, and I was still out 6 weeks. Right? Medicine's advanced. He's got all the advanced fancy care he can get. But the fact that he came back and played, and then he hurt it again, and he still played, and you could tell he was still hurt. And the other thing is that when he didn't have to run, the thing that the biggest complaint most people have about running quarterbacks is they can't pass in the pocket. That dude can fucking do anything he wants to do. He just, I don't know if we'll ever see another guy like him. I mean, the only thing that'll tarnish this guy's legacy, now that he's won 2, and you and I've talked about this before. I don't know if we've talked about it on the show before, that Mahomes at this point, before yesterday, probably thought he would have had 2 or 3 rings by now. He realized, like Dan Marino, that they are really hard to come by. And but now that he's won 2, they'll probably get a little bit easier. I expect him to have 3 or 4 at least by the time his career's over. The only thing that'll tarnish his legacy is an injury, if he gets knocked out because of injury. And other than that, this guy is probably worth every goddamn penny they're paying him with the $450 million, and we haven't seen the last of him. I mean, this is special. This is Michael Jordan shit that we're watching here. Unfolding right in front of our eyes, and I was happy to be a part of it. And that's not to take anything away from Jalen Hurts, because that boy can flat play football too.
Dude, I wouldn't have been surprised or upset if Jalen Hurts had gotten the MVP of the Super Bowl, even though they lost. What he was able to do in that game, had like 300 yards passing. He had a passing touchdown. He had 3 rushing touchdowns. He almost carried the ball like 20 times. He got the 2-point conversion rushed in for him. Like, he did everything he could to win that game for his team. And I wouldn't have been surprised if he got it. I honestly think Nick Bolton probably should have been the MVP of the game, because Patrick Mahomes didn't even touch 200 passing yards in the game, which is a credit to the game plan, right? Eagles had the most sacks in the NFL. So what do? You run the ball with Isaiah Pacheco all game, and it worked out for him. So,
well, again, and that and the Eagles offense. I mean, I was going to say the Eagles defense, but the Eagles offense, just keeping Mahomes off the field. I mean, he had like what he played what 7. He was on the field 7 minutes in the first half out of the first 30. I
Something
mean,
like that. Yeah.
dude. I mean, that's what I said. The Eagles did everything they wanted to do.
Yeah, and I mentioned Nick Bolton, and part of the reason the Chiefs were off the field for a long time in the first half is because of the Jalen Hurts fumble that happened that got returned for a touchdown. So a defensive score in that game changes the entire complexion of what's happening. You know what I mean? So, it was when plays needed to be made, the Chiefs made them, and that's why at the end of the day they win the game. Obviously, we could see here and bitch about the penalty, which is what a lot of people are doing, and I have. I don't think they should have thrown the flag there. But for what it was and for what the game was, it was still, like we mentioned, one of the best Super Bowls to ever happen.
Yeah, and I don't think they should have thrown the flag either. I really don't. There are a couple calls, the not fumble because he didn't make a football move. Look, he doesn't get popped. He runs 10 yards. So that's where that rule really pisses me off, right? There has to be some kind of interpretation. The hit caused a fumble. The defense should have been rewarded. There's a couple other calls, but I don't want to deflect away from that. That shouldn't have been called. With that said, the Chiefs were doing whatever they wanted to do the last 8 minutes before that happened. And all that did was give them a first down, right? So there's still a touchdown brewing. There's still a first down. There's still a first down brewing, potential first down brewing. There's still a potential touchdown brewing. There's at least a field goal. There's a whole lot. I know that would have given the Eagles the ball back, but I don't think people are letting them distract them from just how much the Chiefs were dominating in those last 5 to 8 minutes. It was the Chiefs' game to lose at that point. But we'll never know, unfortunately. And I understand Eagles fans are upset, but I think I can't even say the better team won. I told you I thought the Eagles, pound for pound, are more talented team overall. They just got out coached. I can't say enough. What a good game, man! I just can't. I may watch that again sometime.
Truly, I wouldn't mind watching the replay of that. And I think that Super Bowl, that shows the true importance of getting the right coach and the right quarterback. As long as you have a great coach and a great quarterback, you're going to be able to compete with anybody.
Yep. So great conclusion to a great season. I mean, we've had some crazy seasons the last couple of years. I just thought overall this season was a lot of fun. It really was. So with that said, now it's time to start talking about next year.